Joining us now is Jamil Jaffer, founder and executive director at the National Security Institute. Thank you for being here, Jamil.
Thanks for having me, Natasha.
What can you tell us about this prison and the significance of it burning tonight?
Well, this is a prison where they hold a number of political prisoners. A couple of Americans are there, American-Iranian dual nationals accused of spying. There are former members of the regime that fell out of favor. This is where all of the people that the Iranian regime is concerned about, they put them. It's in the outskirts of the Iranian capital, Tehran, near the foothills of the Alborz Mountains, which circle the capital there. And it's actually in a pretty nice neighborhood, but it's a notorious prison. It's known for torture and the like. And what we saw there today, apparently protests breaking out the prison, fights going on, an attempted escape. And we know there was at least a fire there, and there were sounds of gunshots, including automatic gunfire. And we know that the Iranian secret police, the Basij, were deployed to that prison to put that riot or that protest there down.
Certainly, as we've been tracking this has turned into more than just anger at the death of Mahsa Amini. What are Iranians demanding now? How has this evolved?
Well, there's been a lot that's been going on besides the protests. As in the context of the protests, we've seen the Iranian government at times cracking down. We've heard reports that there have been women who have been accused of committing suicide, jumping off of buildings. But the belief is they died in police custody. There have been accusations of abuse, both of men and women, in police custody. Now, the crackdowns haven't been as brutal as we saw during the so-called Green Revolution, but the protests haven't been as large either. But what's really interesting, I think, Natasha, about these protests is the consistency and the length of time for which they've gone on, and the fact that they continue to take place and continue to grow, I think, is a demonstration that the Iranian people are fed up with the regime and its behavior and its treatment of its own people.
Absolutely. And, I mean, you mentioned the duration, the steadfastness of this push. In terms of revolution, can this movement succeed where the Green Revolution failed?
Well, that's a really tough question to answer, Natasha. I think the question becomes, how much support are these protesters going to get from the outside? The president has said the right things. The American president, President Biden, has said the right things. We have imposed certain sanctions on senior Iranian regime leaders. But of course, we've had significant sanctions on Iran. And at the same time that we're supporting the protesters, we continue to work efforts to try and get a nuclear deal done. So it's not clear that the protesters have the full-throated support of not just the United States, but our other Western allies. Without that kind of support, they're not going to be able to rise up and really overturn this regime, which does have the ability to crack down if it wants to. They actually appear to be playing it smart, trying not to get aggressive in the crackdown for fear that they might actually create a bigger backlash in Iran than they would benefit from by cutting the protests off right away.
That's an interesting point. And I mean, we're talking about support. Just yesterday, President Biden saying that he fully supports peaceful protesters. In the past with us, you've described the delicate dance on the part of the U.S. When it comes to this conflict. Is the administration showing enough support?
Well, Natasha, to be candid with you, I think that I wish we had shown more support for the Green Revolution when we had the opportunity back 2 administrations ago. And it would be ideal if this administration would show more support. If we made clear we're not going to do a nuclear deal with Iran, that they need to start treating their people better, and that the United States stands ready to provide more support to those protesters, more support for free internet there in Iran, more support for democracy activists and the like. We haven't yet done that. We've said the right things, and that's a good thing. That's a step in the right direction. It's more than we've done in the past. That being said, it just isn't enough at this point. The Iranian people are not going to be able to take their own government over. Part of the reason why, Natasha, as you know and you and I have talked about before, is the U.S. government doesn't want to be viewed as being part of a regime change effort in Iran. That probably makes sense, too, because then the Iranians can point and say, look, this is actually a U.S., fomented thing when in fact it's coming from their own people.
Fascinating. It would play right into the propaganda that Iranian state media has been pushing out for so long. Jamil Jaffer, always good to see you. Thank you for your insight. Thank you for your time.
Thanks a ton.